Aces and Ashes. Chapter 4. The Predator's Shadow. The air in Victor Thorne's penthouse suite felt taut, crackling with barely contained fury. The panoramic view of the glittering strip, usually a source of immense satisfaction, now seemed to mock him with its serene indifference. His security chief stood rigid, absorbing the silent wrath that emanated from his CEO. "Explain to me." Thorne's voice was a low growl, more dangerous than a shout, how a disgraced street performer and a cleaning lady managed to evade the most sophisticated surveillance net in this city. And how they acquire information that should, by all accounts, be buried under half a century of concrete and silence. The chief, a man whose career was built on absolute control, offered no excuses. "Sir, our perimeter teams at the boneyard identified them. They established a pattern of movement suggesting they were heading back towards the Oasis Palace. We initiated a tactical retrieval protocol. And failed," Thorne finished, his gaze like shards of ice. The Desert Bloom Project was not some speculative rumor. It was a ghost he had believed exorcised, a family secret meticulously guarded, a vulnerability in the very foundations of his burgeoning empire. The idea that two unknowns had stumbled upon it, and worse, were now actively pursuing its secrets, was an affront. "Their escape from the boneyard was unorthodox, sir. They used the terrain and low light to their advantage. But they are contained. We have eyes on all exits from the Oasis Palace. They will return to the source of their information. And when they do, my elite retrieval team will be waiting." Thorne nodded, a single, sharp motion. "I want that key. I want those blueprints. And I want them in my vault, under my control, before they can be misused. Do whatever is necessary, but do it quietly. No unnecessary noise. No attention." He emphasized the last word, his eyes boring into his chief's, the unspoken threat clear. This was not a game. It was a surgical operation, designed to excise a cancerous threat before it metastasized. His security chief saluted crisply. "Consider it done, sir." Miles away, in the relative anonymity of a downtown diner, Ethan Blackwood and MJ Juarez sat hunched over a cracked formica table, their untouched coffee growing cold between them. The adrenaline from their narrow escape was still humming in their veins, a frantic symphony that left them breathless. They knew, MJ whispered, the reality of their situation settling like a lead weight. They were waiting. That wasn't just a random patrol. Thorne's people. He must be watching the Oasis Palace. Every inch. Ethan ran a hand through his perpetually disheveled hair. "He knows we have something. He doesn't know what, not exactly. But the key." He pulled the antique brass key from his pocket. It still radiated a faint, persistent warmth. "And your blueprints. They're the link. We have to get them somewhere safe," MJ said, her gaze darting nervously towards the diner's entrance. "Somewhere he can't find them. And we need to figure out what this Desert Bloom Project is. My grandfather," he hinted at something big, something hidden, but he never said what. Their eyes met. The unlikely alliance, forged in the dust of the boneyard, now felt impossibly fragile against the looming might of Thorne Holdings. But a shared purpose, a nascent sense of responsibility for the truth they had unearthed, spurred them on. "The Oasis Palace," Ethan finally stated, a grim determination hardening his features. "That's where it started. That's where the answers are. If this Desert Bloom network is as extensive as your blueprints show, there's got to be a main access point, a central hub. And the key, it points back to the casino." MJ nodded slowly. "There are anomalies in the blueprints. A section beneath the main vault. The Echoing Heart, it's called. It looks like a central nexus. It's the most heavily symbolized part of the entire network." They finished their cold coffee, a silent agreement passing between them. The casino, once a place of mundane routine for MJ and tired performances for Ethan, now loomed as a fortress of secrets, a gilded cage where the predator waited. They decided to re-enter, to risk it all, driven by an insatiable curiosity and the chilling realization that they were already too deep to turn back. They approached the Oasis Palace an hour later, cloaked by the evening crowds. The casino floor was a pulsating organism of light, noise, and human desire. Slot machines sang their mechanical siren songs, The clatter of chips mingled with 1,000 conversations, and the air thrummed with the electric hum of anticipation. For Ethan, it was a stage. For MJ, a complex diagram. "Stick to the service areas, as much as possible," MJ instructed, her voice low. "I know the blind spots, the less monitored passages. But if we get separated, head for the loading docks on the north side. There's an old waste chute that connects to the alley behind the kitchens." As they navigated the throng, a subtle shift occurred. The usual flow of human traffic seemed to subtly alter, coalescing around them, like water being funneled. Ethan's practiced eye, trained to read the subtle cues of an audience, picked up on it instantly. A group of burly men in dark suits, too well-dressed for tourists, too formal for bouncers, began to move with a predatory coordination. "Company," Ethan murmured, his hand already dipping into his jacket, retrieving a deck of cards. "They're good, very good." One of the men, a hulking figure with a cold, expressionless face, broke from the group, moving directly towards them. His hand, subtly, moved towards his waist. "A signal. Now," Ethan hissed. With a flourish, he fanned the deck of cards, then, with a flick of his wrist, sent them spinning outwards, a blizzard of white and red against the kaleidoscopic lights of the casino. They fluttered down, raining upon unsuspecting gamblers and tourists, causing a ripple of confusion and minor panic. "What the?" a tourist exclaimed, swatting at a card that landed on his drink. The momentary chaos was all Ethan needed. He grabbed MJ's arm. "This way." He pulled her through a narrow gap between two slot machines, his movements fluid, almost imperceptible. The security team, momentarily disoriented by the card shower, surged forward, their eyes scanning the crowd. But Ethan, a master of misdirection, had already vanished. They plunged into the swirling vortex of the main casino floor, moving with practiced efficiency. Ethan, using his magician's grace, weaved through the throngs, his eyes constantly scanning for paths, for gaps, for distractions. He bumped into a large, boisterous group celebrating a jackpot, creating a momentary bottleneck, then slipped away, leaving the security team to disentangle themselves. MJ, meanwhile, was a navigator, her mind mapping their escape route in real time. "Left at the roulette table. Then through the high-limit lounge. They won't expect us to cut through there," she directed, her voice urgent. She spotted a discreet service door, barely visible to the casual eye. "In here, quick." They burst into the sterile, fluorescent-lit world of the casino's service tunnels. The air was colder here, smelling of grease, disinfectant, and the faint, metallic tang of electricity. This was MJ's domain. She moved with purpose, her steps confident, her knowledge of the labyrinth absolute. "Utility tunnel, section C-7, she rattled off, pointing down a dark, narrow passage. "Leads to the old laundry rooms. It's a dead end for anyone who doesn't know the trick." Behind them, the thud of heavy boots echoed. Thorne's team was fast, efficient. They were not easily shaken. "They're gaining," Ethan grunted, glancing over his shoulder. He palmed a discarded poker chip, flicking it with expert precision into a fire alarm box. The shrill, piercing wail that erupted was deafening, momentarily disorienting their pursuers, who hesitated, their hands reflexively going to their ears. "Through here," MJ shouted, yanking open a heavy, unmarked steel door that blended seamlessly into the concrete wall. It led into a cramped, dusty ventilation shaft. "Crawl." They squeezed through, dust and cobwebs clinging to their clothes. The shaft was tight, dark, reverberating with the hum of unseen machinery. Ethan, despite his agility, felt claustrophobic, but MJ's determined crawl pushed him onward. They emerged into a seldom-used pantry, stacks of canned goods towering around them. The muffled shouts of Thorne's men were still audible, frustratingly close. MJ didn't hesitate. "This way." Back alleys. She led him through a maze of industrial kitchens, the air thick with the scent of fried food and stale grease. Chefs, startled by their sudden appearance, barely registered them before they were gone, bursting through a swinging door and out into the night. The back alleys of the Oasis Palace were a stark contrast to the glittering strip just yards away. Here, dumpsters overflowed, grimy walls were covered in faded graffiti, and the air hung heavy with the smell of refuse. This was the city's underbelly, raw and exposed. But for Ethan and MJ, it was sanctuary, however temporary. Left, between the linen bins, MJ directed, her breath coming in ragged gasps. They scrambled over a stack of discarded crates, their footsteps echoing in the narrow passage. The shouts of their pursuers were fainter now, confused by the sudden change of scenery. Ethan spotted a delivery truck idling at the end of the alley, its engine rumbling. "The truck," he yelled, pointing. They sprinted towards it, dodging discarded cardboard and overflowing bins. As Thorne's men rounded the corner, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, Ethan and MJ hurled themselves into the back of the open delivery truck, landing amidst stacks of fresh linens. The truck, oblivious, lurched forward, pulling away from the curb just as the security team reached the alley's mouth. Hidden amongst the clean sheets, breathing heavily, Ethan and MJ exchanged a desperate, triumphant glance. They had escaped, but the predator's shadow loomed larger than ever. They had the key and the blueprints, but now they understood the immense power they were up against. The game of cat and mouse had just begun, and the stakes were higher than they could have possibly imagined.